We're going to learn how to create a pattern. We're going to use the one created in lesson 6. To do this, we will go to File and Open, and we will open up this, just this blank artboard, 06 pattern.psd. We're going to go ahead and open that up. Next thing we want to do is we want to go over here and grab the polygon tool. It is underneath the rectangle tool, so underneath the selection tool, so we will click on that. We're going to make sure we are on shape up here, make sure it's not on path or pixels. The color, the fill color, and the stroke we're not going to worry about at this moment. Now in the book, it's going to say that they want you to hold down the shift and draw a polygon shape, but we are not going to hold down the shift. The reason is I do want it to be perfect, and they have made changes, so that is one of the changes. So I am zooming in on this so you can see better. So what we're going to do is we are not going to hold the shift key down, and we are going to click and we are going to drag until we are at 340 pixels. I'm looking for the width, so I'm waiting until I get to 340 pixels wide. Then I'm going to let go. Okay, now I do want this centered, so I'm going to grab my move tool, and I'm going to move until until I can tell that it is vertically and horizontally centered. And once I get that centered, I am going to go over here or go back up here into the options bar of my shape. Now, if I'm on the move tool and I want to get back to my shape, I do have to go ahead and click back on the shape tool. With it still selected, I'm going to change my fill to no fill. I don't want to fill. I want a stroke of 20 pixels, so I'm going to type 20. And I want that stroke to be a darker blue. And it can be really any darker blue. They do have a specification of R of 23, a G of 49, and a B or blue of 153. So it will be a darker blue. Once we get that done, we are going to change the shape of this into an actual star. Now I can do this up here, but in the book they do ask that you go over to your properties. So over here in your properties, and if you don't see everything in your properties, you might have to scroll, just to forewarn you, because there's more stuff. So if yours is kind of squished together, I'm going to squish mine all together here for a minute. You may have to scroll over here in this properties, just so you are aware. And I am going to make this an 8-point star. So here where it says 5, I want a 8-side, sorry, not point, but an 8-sided, not 84, 8. And I'm going to hit enter. The next thing I want to do in order to get it to be more like a star, I'm going to set the star ratio to 70%. So underneath of this, I'm going to change this to 70. And then it will actually invert and rotate those angles. Next thing I want to do is I want us to take a look at the other things inside of this property. Notice that we can rotate it here. We could actually change instead of it being pointed, we could change it to a curve here. We could change it so that our stroke is on, we could do it on the inside, on the outside, or half and half. And we're going to just go ahead and leave it at half and half. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to create a new star, and I want to basically have a duplicate of this layer. So to do that, I am going to do one of two things. I can click here and drag down to the plus sign. That will do that. Or I could have clicked on this and then drag. But I'm going to go ahead and click and drag down here because I do want them right on top of each other. Next thing I want to do is I want to make the second one that I just made smaller than my first. So before I do that, I would like us to go ahead and rotate this. We're going to rotate it, so I'm going to have to scroll up in my properties, and I want to rotate it 24 degrees. So I'm going to type 2, 4, enter. And then I'm going to click on my move tool, and I'm going to hold my option key down, and I'm going to resize this down until we are approximately point on point here. Okay, inside the book it says about 193. Mine has not worked out to 193. It's a little too small, so I just want it to be just so that your points are kind of overlapping a little bit right here. Okay, so when you're done, check off of it. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to actually view this as a pattern. So to view this as a pattern, we're going to go up here to View, and we're going to go down to Pattern Preview. If I zoom out, you can see that that does stretch across the board. Okay. Anytime you want to turn it off, you go View and then uncheck mark it. Oops. But I am going to leave it on for a minute. So View, Pattern Preview. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom back in on it. Now, what I do want you to realize is when I make something here change, it's actually going to change all of them. So I am going to click on this one, and I'm going to click on it on one of our little anchor points, and I'm going to pull it downward, so all the way down till I get to 20 pixels, which is going to give me a rounded star. And then I'm going to click on the inner one, and I'm going to add some more points. I want more than 8 this time. I want it to be, so I'm going to scroll down, and I want it to be 15 sides. So I'm going to type 15, enter. And I want it to be 15 pixels, the width of this. So I'm going to type 1.5 for my line width. So that's going to change as well. We're going to leave everything else the same. Now, for my pattern, I've decided that maybe what I want to do is not have this blue background, because I would be stuck with this. Anytime I use this pattern, I would always have to use this blue background. So what I've decided to do is go ahead and hide this. To make this into an actual pattern, we go up here to Edit, and we simply go down here to Define Pattern. What happens is a box should pop up. It should say pattern name. This one is going to be called Podcast Pattern. Podcast Pattern. And we are going to say OK. Now this will be available to use on any document in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click back on this one, because this is the one that I was working on. So what we're going to do is we are now going to add a pattern in our background. So while I am on this episode background, I am going to hit my half black, half white circle, which is adding an adjustment, or adding, it could be an adjustment layer or it could be a color layer. We have a solid color, a gradient, or a pattern. So we're going to click on pattern. Now by default, it's going to put this one in because that is the first one that is listed in the patterns. We want to hit the down arrow and we want to select the one that we just made. So we just made this one right here. So we want to select that one, podcast pattern. And once I get that put in here, we can still make some adjustments on it. We don't want it quite this big, so we're going to scale this down to 35%. And I think we might end up rotating this a little bit too, maybe like 45 degrees. Okay, so then it's going to spread this pattern out a little bit. And then I'm done. Make sure that you don't forget to save your working document when you are done.